Curtis with another live stream and our podcast, Lead Gen and Conversion. And we are excited to talk about the team leader challenges that are faced when it comes to lead gen and conversion, particularly focused on the lead conversion side of the business. And we have a jam-packed 30 minutes for you, so I hope you're ready to go. Because we got some really, really interesting insights to share with you based on our experience of generating hundreds of thousands of leads and literally attracting, training, and coaching hundreds of agents over the course of our career. We've seen the good, bad, and ugly. And we're here just to help any way that we can to make sure you don't make some mistakes that we have made in the past and that we see a lot of our coaching clients make. So diving right in, we're going to really hone in on the lead conversion side here today. If you missed the past two episodes, go back and watch or listen to those to catch the full context of what we're talking about. But Brian, lead conversion, this is a jam-packed, there's a lot that goes into lead conversion that people have, it's not even on their radar. So maybe we start from what I'm thinking, Brian, maybe we start from when the lead first comes in, like having the conversation around when the lead comes in, what are all the things that affect lead conversion from the very beginning of when the first generated? Why don't we start there, if that's cool with you?
Sure. Yeah. I'll say just the simplest thing, speed to lead matters. So there's a study from 2010, so I'm not even sure it's worth quoting. So it's probably gotten worse, is my educated guess. But I think the rule was within the first 5 minutes, you saw a 300% drop off in answer rate within the first 5 minutes. So,
wow.
5 minutes. 5 minutes, 300, it's over 300%. Now, again, that's when people used to answer their phone. So right. I can't imagine how bad that is today. So a speed to lead does matter. And then here's the other concept. We talked about this the other time, one of our other episodes, but ultimately it used to be we wanted to let people know we were real estate agents. I think the exact opposite is true now. We need to let people know we're real estate agents because they may actually want to talk to a real estate agent, but they don't want to talk to the 17 other spammers that have called them that day.
Sure.
I think that's an important concept as well.
That's really interesting because it before you had that problem, it was the real estate agent calling, right? So you had to get around that. But now, to your point, we don't want to be mixed in with all of the other spammers and their spamming radar. The second they answer their phone is really high, right? That is what I'm hearing you say. So that's the big difference. Interesting.
Yeah. So, we send text messages now that identify us. We used to send text messages, hey, how are you doing? Now we send text messages, hey, this is Brian Curtis with Curtis Realty Group. You made an inquiry and I'm going to give you a call and follow up with you. Yeah. And, again, the logic before was don't say that. They'll answer the phone if they don't know who you are. The logic now is let them know who you are. There's an actual chance they might answer the phone. And, it's an interesting concept. But, the next thing I would say with lead conversion, and this is something that a lot of people don't do, you've got to work on your first 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. If I called you, and this is one of my favorite things that happens, I'll take calls every once in a while, just not, just because my phone, I'm like, I'll just take it, right?
Yeah.
Is this Mr. Curtis? And I'm like, nope. That's the first thing. Nobody says that. And by the way, even if I say, is this Isaiah? I want you guys to think about this. How many times have you called one of your friends and they answered the phone and you went, is this Isaiah? Yeah. You would never say that. So what you're saying is, I'm a salesperson. I'm here to sell you something. Put your guard up. So tell people who you are, work on your interest group. Hey, it's Brian Curtis with Curtis Realty Group. I'm reaching out because you made an inquiry last year, and we're just following up with all the people who made inquiries to make sure we can get them serviced and their needs are met, as a lot of changes have happened in 2024. With that in mind, are you guys looking to make a move soon, or were you just window shopping? And I'm not saying that's the exact script you should use, but you notice that script does a couple of things. It tells people who I am. It reduces pressure by giving them the option. Maybe take a step back. It also tells them why I'm calling them. I'm calling them because they inquired, not because I bought a list of people and I'm banging through it, but because they made an inquiry and I'm doing my job. So it's harder to get pissed off at somebody when you say, hey, I'm just doing what you asked me to do, whether I asked you to do it or not. And then the idea of the end of, are you just window shopping? That's an opportunity to say no without saying no.
Right. And I love how the script's built, because it's built in a way that doesn't allow the prospect to get hung up on any one part of the script. It has there's a lot of science and art built into how it flows. So they'll let you keep going with your conversation until you can get to your first question. That's a really, really important part of a script. So hopefully rewind this later on if you want to go hear how that all sounds, because there's a lot of art and science into script writing and how that script flows. So that's really good. I want to unpack speed delete a little bit more, because a lot of people hear that and I think speed delete. They like consciously know it's important, but like, what the hell goes into speed delete to actually make it work? What are all the elements that go into speed delete?
So it's interesting, because I asked this question: why the hell does it matter if I call you a minute after you hit the button on the computer or an hour after I hit the button on the computer? Yeah. Theoretically, that should be the same, right? Because you're either going to answer your phone or you're not. It's the logic. But here's the research they found, and I want you guys to think about your own habits. I like to go, how do I behave? And not that I behave like everybody else, but generally we have some similarities as humans. How do I behave? Well, I go on the computer, I put something in, and then what do? I go eat lunch, or I put something in the computer and then I go hang out with my friends, or I put something in the computer and talk to my wife. Well, the second I walk away from the computer, I'm not going to answer the phone anymore, because I've switched gears. And by the way, and I'm not going to go into whether it's good, the amount we switch right now, but I will say this: we switch. That's life.
And more than we even know it, the amount we're task switching, it's insane.
So if you think about it, I'm sitting in front of a computer, I'm looking at houses, and my phone rings. I might go, you know what? Maybe I can take that. 5 minutes later, I didn't even remember that I put an inquiry on homes.com, realtor.com, somebody's website. I don't even remember, because I'm doing something else. So I think that's why speed to lead happens that way. Now, I'm sure there's a bunch of people going, well, I guess it doesn't matter if I don't call anybody, if I don't call them in the first 30 seconds. No. You still got to follow up. And the reality is, it's the right person at the right time, the right conversation. So we're working on the right time. That's what we're doing. And that's why our follow-up is so much more intense now. And it has to be. I don't know the actual numbers. I haven't run them in the last 12 months. But for a while, the numbers were running around 8 to 12 attempts, reach outs, if you will, to get an actual conversation with somebody on the average.
Yeah. And how many channels are you following up on? Like, I know I'll go over what we do. I'm just curious how many channels you guys follow up on.
So for us, we're not big email people. Basically, I let email auto drip out of my CRM. Yeah. So I know a lot of people consider email a reach out. I don't. Anything that I can do 1,000 at a time is not a reach out to me. That means that's an automation, and automation has value. Big automation fan, but that's not it. So I don't even count the email. So our reach outs are text messages, video text messages, and phone calls. And let me talk about video text for just a second. And I don't know if people have looked at it from this perspective or not, but how many spams do you get a day? Like, I got one last night. Are you okay? And I'm like, screw you. I don't even know who you are. That kind of thing. I get these all day. Come pick me up at the airport. I was getting that one for a while. Like, really? You think I'm going to come pick you up at the airport? Clearly I'm not smart enough to understand what the scam is. But so now I want to ask everybody who's watching this, how many scam video texts have you got? I've gotten 0. I'm not saying it's not coming, because, spammers will find a way.
Yeah. I don't think I've gotten one. I don't think we're out. Yeah. I mean, how often do you actually get a video text? Right. So when you do, it's like.
Yeah, it's different, right? Here's one of the things I've been saying for years, Isaiah. Ideally, you'll be better. At a minimum, be different. And I think we should be different and better. But ultimately, being different, think about this. When I started real estate in 2005, literally how did you get a real estate agent in 2005? You walked into somebody's office, literally walked in their office and said, I need a real estate agent. You drove by a sign, you called somebody, you asked a friend for a referral. But what you didn't do was go online and get bombarded by 30 real estate agents.
Right.
So now I use the number 7. I don't know if it's real or not, but that's my number. I assume that if you're a potential client, you're talking to 6 other realtors and me. So 7. And I've got to be different. And sometimes just being different, they'll pick me because I'm different, because everyone's exactly the same. Well, Brian's weird and different. I'll go with him, and I know that seems like a strange approach, but at the end of the day, people have to pick something. The way that the unconscious mind works, it identifies different.
Yeah. And, the other thing about different when it comes to video is you're building a relationship in a different way. Mm-hmm. Because the audio visual component, instead of just a message, you're engaging other forms of communication that help develop relationships faster. So you're going to actually speed up the process of them responding to you, getting to know, like you, and trust you, because you're using the video, audio, and text all in the same process. And I think people take that for granted too. It's like, oh, I don't, and then you hear all the reasons why you don't do video text. Oh, I don't want to look a certain way, on video, or I don't know what to say. And it's like, and here's the thing that I learned when I started doing video text a lot is I overthought it like crazy in the beginning. But as I started doing it, I'm like, this is not difficult stuff here. And I don't need to be dressed to the nines to do a video text. I'm just presentable. Like I probably should when I'm working anyway. Right. So it's like, what are some of the reasons you hear about why people don't do video text?
Here's my favorite too. I don't like how I look and I don't like how I sound. And my response to that is kind of a smart ass answer. That's how you look and that's how you sound. Isn't your goal to eventually get in front of these people physically? You know what they're going to do? They're going to see how you sound and see how you, and I think we have this perception that on video we sound different. No, we just don't get the opportunity to hear ourselves all the time. And this is how we sound. Do I like how I look and sound? No.
Exactly.
I'm like, okay, my hair's out of place and I don't like this. And but here's the thing. I got to get over it. What's more important to me? My ego. And here's the other thing that just drives me nuts. How egotistic, and I've done it, so I'm included in this group. Are you to believe that somebody gives a rip how you look?
I know. They actually care that much.
They don't care. If they do, then that's kind of weird, So
it's funny you said that, because I don't know if it was Alex Ramosi, who I study quite a bit, or another influencer that I follow, but the quote was like, about 30 days after you're dead, nobody's going to care about you. Maybe a couple of your friends and family. But 30 days after you're dead, nobody's going to care about you. So why do you care so much about what other people think? And I was like, that's a pretty morbid way to think about it, but it's the truth. Like, think about how much happier our lives would be, how much more we would get done, the things we would pursue, if our decisions weren't led by what people thought all the time.
It's one of the most freeing things in the world. When you can just begin to start that process. Because I'd like to tell you that I've completed that process, and 100%.
None of us have, right? None of us have. Yeah.
I've at least started down the path, and it's freedom.
It's freeing.
It really is.
Yes. And it's freeing to get to the point where even maybe we haven't, at least for speaking for myself, maybe I haven't entirely overcome the fear or the thought of it, but enough to actually have the freedom to go and do. And realize I don't care enough to let it stop me from doing it anymore. I think there's tremendous freedom in that, right? Even though you always care a little bit, you always self-reflect, right? That's part of human nature, and there's some good to that, so you improve and get better, right? But caring so much that you don't do it is just a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Here's what your business with that mindset.
Here's a saying that somebody shared it with me, and I've made it mine because I can't remember who shared it with me. But your opinion of me is none of my business is a really, really powerful way to run your life. And here's the thing, I want to flip this on both sides, because people are like, well, I love it when people say good things about me. It makes me feel good. Okay, great. And then you hate it when people say bad things about you. It makes you feel bad. Either way, you're giving them the power. In other words, I have to decide whether I'm going to feel good or bad based on what Isaiah says about me today. I like Isaiah, but I'm not going to let my life be controlled by how he feels about me. But we do that, though. Oh, so-and-so said this, and it really who cares? And by the way, they probably forgot about you and have no idea that they even said anything, and they've moved on. So
and meanwhile, your leads are getting worked by some other agent. They're getting the commissions, making all the money, and you're losing your shirt because you're worried about what people think. So I think that's a big part of speed leads. So we got the multiple channels, the video, text. Let's talk about frequency a little bit more. So how many times in a row, how many days in a row do you and your team do that sequence?
So we actually have a sequence that we run. We run it for 3 days, and then we skip a day. And then we run it for 3 days more, then we skip a day. And it ends up being approximately 30 reach outs in 15 days, or 30 reach out. It comes out to about 2 a day. But again, 3 days in there, we didn't reach out. I want people to take a break from us. And let me talk about why we do that. In other words, why do we stop? Like, why on day 15 are we stopping? Well, we were talking about spam earlier. And even though we're not spammers, we are. Doesn't mean that the other person doesn't know I'm a spammer. So what do I do when I get this text that says, please come pick me up at the airport? I hit a button on my phone that says report junk, which means I don't get any more messages from that phone number. I can do that with Isaiah if I want. He's not junk. I can do it with literally anybody I want. And because of that, after 15 days, I don't want Agent A, whoever that was, continuing that. I want B to pick that up, because maybe Agent A's phone got blocked. So after 15 days, we move on. And I think that it's just doesn't make sense to keep doing the same thing if you're not getting some kind of result. So we put that person.
That's really great insight. That's a ninja trick right there. That's a really powerful strategy. I don't think too many people are teaching or doing that. And it makes good sense though, because I think what I hope our listeners are getting out of this is you really got to pay attention to the details. You can tell Brian and I, we've done A/B testing. We've looked at these things. We've seen what's working, what's not working. And the crazy thing about marketing and just lead generation, lead conversion, the littlest tweaks could mean an additional appointment or 2 or 3, or depending on where your scale is, or 5 or 6 or 10 a day. That's what I'm hoping people are picking up in this, is to not take for granted these little gems that we're giving you right now, because they make all the difference in how many appointments you get, which means more commissions, right? So let's talk about the team leader agent conversation. What should be the agent's responsibility in the process of lead conversion? What's the team leader's responsibility?
So the team leader's responsibility, to me, I'll start there, comes from accountability. So in other words, I have to set up the framework as the team leader to say to Isaiah, if he's the agent on my team, this is my expectation from you. That's step 1. Step 2 is, here's the consequence for failing to meet my expectation. And then step 3 is executing on the consequence. So I'll give you an example. If we have a lead that comes in that's not reached out to in a certain period of time, we have a lead manager that literally just goes and reassigns that lead as if you never got it. You didn't do your work. Now, is that problematic sometimes? Yeah, because sometimes the agent actually reached out to that person and did something with it, but then they didn't update the CRM. So to come back, the team leader's job is to hold the agent accountable, set up a system, and that system needs to be equitable and understandable. By the way, I'm the king, and I've worked on this over the last 15 years of making really unbelievably cool systems that are way too complex for people to operate. So don't do that. Simple is powerful. Yeah. Remember, your average agent didn't get in this business to learn how to run a tech company. They're people. They want to be out talking to people. So don't make your systems complex. Make them simple, understandable, so anybody can follow them. as the agent, my job is to follow the system. And I know that seems literally overly simple, but it's to do the number of reach outs that I'm supposed to, update the database, because our lead manager is a great lady. She does an amazing job, but she's not a mind reader. So she can't know that you've reached out to this person 10 times if you're not updating the CRM or making the call / text through the CRM. You've got to use your systems so that we can do that. And then, just feedback. And then the last thing that I think it falls on the agent is your responsibility to know how to have a conversation. And I know that sounds really simple, but I want to say if I talk to 100 agents, probably 95 of them have never been to a formal sales class, have never sat down and said this. We go to these classes and they say, call FSBOs and expireds, reach out to your sphere, do all these things. And those things are valid. I do all those things. Yet the most important thing in lead conversion is getting them to talk to you.
Yeah.
We talked about already. But then when I get them to talk to me, what am I going to say? Because I want you guys to think about this. We were at about a 20% answer rate 5 years ago. Now we're down to 7 or 8%, which means that I've got to make 3 times the amount of dials just to have a conversation. When I get somebody on the phone, I better do well with them, or otherwise I got to make all these dials again to get these people back on the phone. So it's not just about doing it, it's about doing it at a high level. And I think that's more important than it was 5 or 6 years ago, because I could just make more calls 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, I'll tell you, you're hitting on something here that I think a lot of team leaders make a mistake too. And you gain a certain level of sales and marketing experience by just going from being a top producer to a team leader, right? You gain a certain skill set.
Yep.
And then I think what happens sometimes, we forget about the new person or the person that's joined our team that has never had any formal lead conversion training or sales training. And it's interesting because I think about what would happen to me as a sales and marketing expert, that if I was to leave sales and marketing and I was going to go to be an engineer.
Okay.
And I never got formally trained on how to be an engineer. I would last probably one day. But
think about it. Yeah, you're a nuclear engineer. Go ahead and.
I mean, yeah, I could figure it out, but you YouTube videos, like Elon Musk style. I don't know. That's what I have to do, right? Like, but if you think about it, that's what's happening every day in our industries. You have people coming from different walks of life. They might have been a teacher. They might have graduated college with a specific degree, but it wasn't in real estate sales. It wasn't in sales and marketing, most likely, once in a while. So if you're a team leader, you have to, I think the number one obligation we have as a team leader is make sure that our people get formal lead gen and conversion training. They get formal prospecting and sales training.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, we're doing them an injustice. In my opinion, we're setting the average agent up for failure if we're not providing that structure. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'll just tell you what we do to answer that question. We do role play. So, we do a morning huddle. Basically, our morning huddle, we do gratitudes and commitments. So, hey, today I commit to 5 real estate conversations. I'm grateful for Isaiah. He's a great partner. Okay, so I'm going to say something like that. We go, everybody does that, and that takes 7-8 minutes, and then we just go in to do a role play. Sometimes we'll do a phone call. Hey, okay, so who are we doing? We're going to call one of our PPC leads. Go, and then we'll do a role play for that. I usually play the client so that I can give objections and things, and that's for 2 reasons. Sometimes agents are way too hard. They give ridiculous objections that no one can overcome, and that's powerful. Or they just say yes to everything, and that's not powerful. So I generally try and do that myself so that I can give them some level of understanding. And then what we've been doing for the last 2 weeks is actually objection handling. And it's interesting. Let me share this real quickly. I was coming to the class, if you will, and say, Isaiah, what do you got for an objection? And Isaiah would go, I don't know. I don't have anything. And I go around the room and everyone would go, we don't have anything. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, wow, first of all, if that's really true, we need to have more conversations, because if you're not getting objections, you're not having enough
talking to people. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the guy who says, "Yeah, I got a 95% conversion rate on listings." Well, how many have you gone on? 3. That math can't work.
Referrals. Yeah, and the referrals. Yeah.
That's not sales. That's not saying that you're good at listing. That's saying you got a bunch of laydowns.
Yes. Yeah.
So I want everyone to hear this. If you're not doing this, it's about framework. So I was talking to my team leader and it just kind of hit me. I'm like, we don't need to bring a specific objection. We can literally bring any objection and just practice handling objections in general. And so, you would talk about this in the green room, but I do acknowledge and affirm as my first step. Isolate the objection is my second step. The third step is handle the objection. We have 5 frameworks inside of our model to do that. And then fourth is close. And so if you have something like that, it doesn't matter what the objection is. Just, I'm waiting for the interest rates to drop. Perfect. I'm glad to hear that. I talked to a lot of people who are waiting for the interest rates to drop. Bam. Besides that, is there any other reason you wouldn't want to buy a house now? That's step 2. Step 3, I'm not going to go through that objection. It was a lot longer, but that's just basically you go through it. And guys, a lot of people are like, Brian, that's so structured. It is structured, but I want you to understand that in the heat of battle, for lack of a better way to put it, you don't have time to go, Isaiah, give me a minute. I need to go check my notes on, you've got to have this thing that automatically runs in your brain. And that's why I like having an actual process for it.
Yeah. If you look at all great marketers, all great salespeople, they function on frameworks. And what happens is once you memorize the framework, you're able to make it so it doesn't even feel like there's a structure to it. Mm-hmm. But like if you if you model and you listen to top performers and anything that they've mastered their craft, you'll see a repeatable pattern happen. Not the same exact, but it's a very close repeatable pattern that will happen in almost any form of persuasion, even in marketing videos. Like if you start, I did an exercise where I took the top 10 people that I look up to that do really great ads, and I watched like 3 or 4 of their videos. They all were following almost the same framework. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with what you're talking about, the objection cycle. We teach it just a little bit different. It's the same psychology though. Yeah. And you can't survive in our office without knowing that framework, because what we do is called hot seat. So you'll be walking by, think you're going to get a drink, right? And then we'll throw you an objection, and we want to hear the framework, right? And put your own personality, your own, there's good talk tracks and bad, but generally speaking, you have a good talk track with it. But that's how you get to the point where you can literally double your income by having those frameworks.
Yeah. And guys, this is something I used to say all the time. There's only 2 ways to close more transactions. The first is to talk to more people. Everybody has a closing percentage. It's somewhere between point something and 100. No one's on either end of that, but everyone has a closing percentage. So if I talk to more people, eventually I'll get more deals. The average agent that I talk to, matter of fact, every agent I talk to doesn't necessarily want to talk to more people. Yep. So what do you got to do? You got to do better with the people you're already talking to. In other words, you have to learn your scripts and your dialogues and your objection handlers and your framework. And this is an interesting thing. We're probably going to go over here, but this was something that came up for me. There's this garbage piece of information that people keep putting out there, and I think it actually keeps people from becoming masters. And the garbage piece of information is it takes 10,000 hours to master something. That's complete garbage. There was a very specific thing they used to model for that. I don't remember what it was, but I can tell you, let's just take something simple. Learning how to use Zoom, okay, or learning how to use this. Yeah. It didn't take 10,000 hours.
That study was done in the industrial age when you had to. It had something to do with manufacturing and higher levels learning, like doctors, lawyers, et cetera, et cetera. It was not. The study wasn't for like everyday mastery of a skill set of like a narrow skill set.
Yes,
is where that study's flawed. So
here's my point. Guys, if you want to be a master communicator, If you want to, it's not going to take you 10,000 hours. The reason I'm telling you that is I think some people look at it and go, oh my God, it's going to take me 10,000 hours to get good at this. It's not worth doing. But really what we're trying to get to, there's 4 levels of learning. And the 4th level is unconscious competence, which basically means you have an unbelievable competence and you're not even aware of it. And anybody who's watching this, you have unconscious competence driving a car. Like you don't get in a car and go, all right, I got to push the brake and push the start button. It used to be a key. I got to put it in drive. No one does that. What do? They drive a car. Well, for people like Isaiah and I who have practiced this, what are we doing? We're handling objections. We are having conversations. It's not, holy crap, what do I do here? It's, I've done this so many times that it's just like driving a car.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I believe that everyone owes it to themselves to get to that, because if you're going to be in the contact sport that we're in, you have to get really good at making contact. If you're going to be in the persuasion sport that we're in, you have to get really good at persuasion. It's it's a basic skill set that you need to achieve your dreams and goals. And I think that in the world of technology, and it's funny because I'm in it, right? You and I are in it, the businesses that we own.
Yep.
And we're big advocates of it. But one of the things I'll share with you, it will never replace the importance of needing to have the skill sets of persuasion. There's nothing you can do to get around it. And so it's called human nature. If you change human nature, God bless you. So I haven't figured out a way to do it yet. So I figured out to use frameworks to help work with human nature. Right. So,
and you talk about technology. Here's the biggest mistake people, in my opinion, are making. It's just an opinion. They're trying to use technology to replace themselves.
Right.
And not use technology to have more conversations.
Yes. To work a little smarter, to be able to do more, not to replace. It's crazy. But that's another conversation. I think this is a good place to end. We hope that you guys, if you're listening or you're watching this live, you got a ton of value out of today's conversation. If you're currently not tuned into Brian Curtis, go check him out on Facebook. He's putting out some awesome content all the time. Also, we're going to go live here. Again, we're staying pretty consistent here. We'll be live next Wednesday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time with a brand new series that is coming up. And we encourage you to take what we're talking about, just not as like another podcast, but to really think through what we're talking about and saying, okay, what can I take what they're doing and what can I go apply? What can I go implement and try out and do? Because that's another problem we have in our industry. It's the epidemic of learning and not doing. And so we encourage you not just to be a learner, but be a doer. We appreciate your time and attention. And until next week, have an awesome rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.